Welcome back. This is the last segment of Citizens Forum being filmed on Tuesday, November the 3rd in the Memorial Arena, Victoria, BC. Our guest in this segment is Mazin Al Nahawi. Welcome, Mazin. And we're going to be talking about Mr. Mileikowsky.
Yes, actually the first part of the segment will be about Mr. Mileikowsky, and the second part will be about the old anti-Semitism and the new anti-Semitism. Maybe you will ask, who is Mr. Mileikowsky?
I did ask, and you told me, but I didn't know before.
He is Benjamin Netanyahu. This is the real name.
Prime Minister or President of Israel.
The colonial settler state of Israel. He lately made a really controversial statement talking about Palestinian made Hitler do the Holocaust. And he
said what?
Yeah, he said that the Palestinians were behind the Holocaust. They kind of pushed Hitler to do the Holocaust. Now, before going to talk in details about that, I would like to talk about an incident happened in the United Nations to show who is Mr. Mileikowsky, the real one. He claimed once on a podium of United Nations that his first name, Benjamin, go 4,000 years BCE, when the Benjamin and David were running on the hills of Judea. And his second name, Netanyahu, go back 2,000 years, because some archaeologists found a ring was written on it, Netanyahu. He did not mention that his father, Ben Zion Mileikowsky, changed this name, Mileikowsky, to Netanyahu in 1920s, when they moved from Lithuania to colonize Palestine. So Mr. Netanyahu, or I should call him Mr. Mileikowsky, dare to say in front of all United Nations that his second name, his last name, Netanyahu, go back 2,000 years.
Showing the long claim on
in
Israel.
Order to use this claim to expel my family and the Palestinians who live in Palestine for centuries. So this is the kind of person who is Netanyahu, or Mr. Mileikowsky. And another example, Sarkozy and Obama in one of the meetings.
Sarkozy was the
president of France.
Okay.
One time they were caught with open mic talking with each other. Sarkozy telling Obama that this guy is such a liar. He is talking about Netanyahu. And Obama responded saying, are you telling me I have to deal with him every day?
Yeah. I remember that happening. when
I'm not really depending here on the words of Sarkozy or Obama, because both of them are also liars and war criminals. But when a liar and war criminals like Sarkozy and Obama telling you that Netanyahu is such a liar, that tell you what level he went through. But we talked about his father, Ben Zion Mileikowsky. Here there is a good connection to fascist and Nazi between his father and these two I mentioned. His father used to be the assistant and the secretary, the personal secretary of the most radical right-wing Zionist, Jabotinsky, which is the icon for the Likud, which is now Mr. Mileikowsky represents. Jabotinsky himself, he has a group called the Black Shirt Group. He was a friend almost of Mussolini, an admirer of Hitler. So to have the son of the assistant of such a racist guy talking later about Palestinian went ask Hitler to do the Holocaust, that tell you how deep the level of lies this guy in. He himself and his father and the leader of his own right-wing Zionist was fascist Nazi. They sent communication to the Nazi. One of them, 3 books actually were written about this issue. The transfer agreement, Havara agreement between the Zionist and the Nazi to transfer only youth and strong young Jews from Europe to Palestine for money. There is another book called 51 Document, Collaboration Between the Nazi and the Zionist. And the third book called The Holocaust Industry. Now, Zionists always use the issue or the genocide, what happened in Europe, the Holocaust, to legitimize what's happening in their crime in Palestine. And that is the most criminal thing, I think, that to use a big crime like Holocaust to legitimize another crime, genocide. And let's remember, the Zionists themselves always talk about settler colonialism. And settler colonialism cannot be established or cannot go along without genocide. It goes hand in hand. There is no any indigenous people on earth will accept colonial settlers to come and create a state on the indigenous people land. Everybody would resist. And actually that's exactly what Jabotinsky said. He was so realistic about, we have to go with our colonization and this without any regard to their wishes, because there is no indigenous people who accept our project, or we have to stop. And by the way, if people can go to our website or the Bridge News Service, we wrote an article about the NDP bridging some of the candidates talking about the Palestinians. And one of them said that the Zionists themselves wrote everything in our writing.
Yeah, it was kind of a true statement, and for that statement, he could not run in the last federal election. It's amazing what goes on. Now, you've talked in the past about the power behind all of this, like what made Israel happen, and I think you and I agree that it's these powerful external forces, the people who run the world, who wanted to have something in the Middle East because that's where all the oil is, and so they created Israel. And
exactly.
Corporate America was behind Adolf Hitler in the 1920s and early 30s. The corporations of the world helped to create, and they funded Adolf Hitler. Google Bush, Hitler, and Guardian. You'll see the story in the British newspaper. And yet all that remains secret, and millions and millions of people have been paying the price on all sides for decades because of it.
And let's remember that US, Canada, Britain closed their door to Jewish refugees,
yes,
who tried to run from the Holocaust,
right,
in order to go to Palestine, which we go take us to your point you mentioned about who behind that.
Right. So when the Jews fleeing Europe came to Canada and the United States, they were not allowed in, so they had to go to Israel because that was the plan.
And the law called Mackenzie Law, by the way, in Canada, to not allow Jews to come here. That is the old kind of anti-Semitism, which means we don't like you, we hate you, we don't want you to be here, you go to Palestine.
Yeah.
The new kind of anti-Semitism, we love you, we are sorry about what happened, but still we want you to go to Palestine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the difference between. But let's come back about your question about who behind that. As you said, a state like Britain and US are behind that. A group like a bunch of freaks like the Zionists, secular Zionists want to create Jewish state, cannot on their own create the whole things without the support of imperial power, using that kind of project to kind of in order to create a buffer state in the Middle East, as we said in the previous segments, in order to continue the theft of the resource and control the strategic location of the East Mediterranean. So by having a Jewish state there supported by the old colonial Western power, it's not going to have, you are not going to have any peace in the region. The indigenous always will be in a struggle with that state, and while the struggle happening, the old Western colonial continue in the process of theft of rush for resource, oil, gas, or building pipelines, or selling weapons. Like one of the example, the American Congress, who I think the whole American state is the one behind Israeli occupation state. And as I said before...
Which has nothing to do with the American people, but the people who run the United States.
And the Congress, like just a few years ago, asked the American people to increase the financial assistance they give for free to the Israeli occupation state because their own sales of weapon to the surrounding country increase. So
if it's good for business, it's got to be good.
American corporations selling the surrounding countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, whatever, weapons, take that money to themselves. Then the American government come and say, okay, we have now Israel need to have more weapons and come out of the American people tax money. So
Mazin,
this is...
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching this issue of Citizens Forum.